Riding my bike in the Texas area where my grandparents lived in April 1989. I was 9 years old. My friend, who is a year older than me, and I constructed a ramp so that we could ride our bikes to the street. I could barely make out the child's cries for help as I drew near the ramp, drowned out by the sound of the wind and my own rapid ascent. Once again, I was under the impression that the ramp supports had collapsed. He was trying to alert me to the fact that a car was speeding down the road, which was obscured by parked automobiles, and that I needed to be warned. A huge automobile from the 1980s crashed into me as I swerved out into the road at high speed. I lost consciousness and was flung about 10 yards, crashing into a parked car on the other side of the roadway. By the time I regained consciousness, I was staring down from a height of around 30 feet. I was being revived by an emergency medical technician when the ambulance pulled up. In the yard of my grandparents, I witnessed my anxious mother and others congregating close by. As I looked down at the landscape below, I felt at peace. I could almost feel the rain on my face as I observed my reflection in the glass. Gradually, I started flying upward while spinning counterclockwise in the air. The neighbor's magnolia treetops and a few other old live oaks were visible to me. I was transported to another place in an instant. As I settled into my new home, I relived the highlights of my brief 9 years on this planet. On occasion, I pretended to be someone else. On other occasions, I stood back and watched, and on yet other occasions, pretended to be someone else entirely. The life review came to a close with my seeing a moment when I acted badly due to rage. I shouted no from inside my body, rejecting the behavior. My entire life's 3D movie came crashing down as a yellowish light burst from my chest in my imagination. A creature composed of light and color was thrown into a multitude of other entities who were observing my life review as this light struck it. After that, I was in a really bright area that didn't strain my eyes, and these entities of light were all about me. They possessed an ethereal beauty, with a kaleidoscope of colors swirling around within, and a somewhat see-through, bluish light emanating from their heads. Hundreds of them were there, and they sang a song that said, "You are loved, you are welcome here," over and over again, using just their thoughts and feelings rather than words. Instantaneous comprehension accompanied by knowledge permeated their speech. I could move my eyes and glance down, yet I was partially kept in place. It was then that I noticed they, too, had vibrant colors in the center of their bodies. Lost and confused, I started to freak out because I couldn't see my legs. "You are loved, you are welcome here," they said in unison till I composed myself. Their lights would sync with mine when they wanted to tell me anything, and vice versa when I thought of something. "You are liked, you are welcome here." Two of the entities advanced ahead of the others and repeated the message. After that, one of them said, "Welcome back," and the other was shushed by the one who had said it. This remains perplexing even after all this time has passed. While watching them converse, I had the impression that I knew each of them, but I couldn't put my finger on it. In retrospect, my study led me to believe that it might have been loved ones who had passed away. Nevertheless, I was never personally acquainted with anyone who had died, so perhaps that is why I perceived them as spirits. To what extent this is true is something I cannot say. They showed me things I can't remember and told me things I'd like not talk about after this perplexing encounter. Remained suspended in midair for an unknown amount of time as these exchanges transpired. I can't say for sure because time was acting strangely, but it felt like at least 30 minutes. All of a sudden, the entities got really pumped up at the end of this exchange. The joy and anticipation felt by all was palpable. At this moment, we were all interdependent. This moment, it hit me. There were probably hundreds more people here. I began to feel the thrill and, strangely enough, forgot what I was doing in that area suspended above. Suddenly, I was able to turn my head to the left or right, but I was paralyzed from the waist down. No matter how much I tried to blend in with the crowd, I was always told not to glance back. I was unable to reverse my direction. Looking in the direction of the commotion, I beheld a gigantic being, dwarfed by the others by a factor of 2. Optimal description for this entity would be a massive white flame resembling a humanoid form with a face. What follows is difficult to put into words. From a distance, I could see the being drawing near. I had a brief encounter with this being before returning to my captivity. After that, a wonderful voice within me said, "Come." Through the veil that was holding me captive, I was shot and thrust into the room with the rest. Great being's feet was where I touched down after a rapid ascent through space. "You are liked, you are accepted," this vast and powerful being told me on one occasion. I was captivated by the sight of the flame and lost track of time, since I was too busy marveling at it. It slithered gently, like a water flame, and shimmered with a rainbow of hues. No matter how hard I tried, I could not perceive the higher being inside the blazing flame. At that moment, I was obstructed. Nonetheless, I sensed that the being was having a conversation with another being. Afterwards, he emerged from the fire and uttered the words, "I am sorry, you must go back now." Floating backwards was all of a sudden. I knew I was returning to my body the second crossed the threshold. I shouted no, since I was clearly not in the mood to do it. "Pause, tell me who you are." He drew me back to himself in an instant. "This is how you see me," he proclaimed with a tremendous rumble resembling 1,000 foghorns simultaneously as he emerged from the flames. He took on the appearance of a bearded old guy with baby-like skin as the rumbling intensified. His beard drew my attention because, once again, each hair appeared vibrant and shimmered with a kaleidoscope of colors. "Whoa," was all I could say in disbelief, just like the Ninja Turtles that were big at the time. My next thought was, "How lovely, Grandpa." My every thought was audible to him. "You must go back now, you are not finished," he responded after a short stint of disappointment. I am still utterly confused about the task at hand. Then I shouted, "No, hold on, no." Through the threshold, I was shoved swiftly backward. I found myself abruptly confined to a black room with a view of the alternate reality. Leaning over the brink, the great being entered the shadowy realm I was inhabiting. He apologized and told her to go back. "Everything about you is wonderful. In all my years, I can't remember a time when I felt such intense love or such profound sadness. That love and that sadness are incomparable to anything else in the world." It seemed like hardly any time had elapsed before I was back in my body. The paramedic standing above me said, "I got him. He is breathing," as I listened to the tube being inserted into my throat. And then he reassured me, "It's okay, you are going to be okay." They had me strapped to an orange and red emergency board while they loaded me into the ambulance, so I tried to move while crying. Additionally, my mother was present as she boarded the ambulance. "No, you don't get it. I really dislike being here," was what I was attempting to express. However, with the tube still lodged in my throat and my lips sealed, I was unable to utter a word. Attempted to inform my mother and the attending physician about what transpired after my skull fracture surgery, and while I was in recuperation. After giving my mom a perplexed look, the doctor finally replied, "Let's step outside for a bit." They remained in the room, audible to me. "People with bad head injuries can imagine things," he told her, as if I were insane. At that moment, I realized that nobody would believe me if I revealed what had transpired. Thus, I devoted the subsequent quarter of a century to studying religion and mortality, in the hopes of discovering evidence sufficient to corroborate my experience. To this day, I can still picture it in my mind. And that concludes our look at today's experience. In the space provided, please tell me what you all think. You may find this experience on the NDE website if you're interested in reading it. Be blessed and remain safe until we meet again.